7, y'all ready? Everybody ready? Mic's
Ready.
on. I call to order the town board meeting, October 20th, 2020. Welcome everyone here in the building, and also welcome everyone that's listening and watching on live stream. And we'll start the agenda today with Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think I'll start the meeting today with a tribute to Mayor Nancy Kelly. Nancy, which is a long-term resident, actually was born in Rolesville, I believe. She passed away October 11th here in town. And she was very involved in our community and served for 25 years as official on the town board and 6 years as mayor. And I know she served my first 6 years on the board as mayor, and I think she served some time while you was here, Jackie. I think.
As mayor, yes.
Yep. So she was retired from the North Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles in 1991. Also prior to serving on the board, she was a member of the Rolesville EMS and a certified emergency medical technician. She's very active and a member of the Moose Lodge, which is down here on 401, and had many years in service with our community, and really her term was from 2002 to 2007, and if you guys remember, that was the years prior to the big recession. So she was mayor that experienced a lot of growth here in town. You know, the commercial buildings, a lot of them that you see here on Rogers Road and Sonic, all that stuff came during that period of time from 2002 to 2007. So just want to give a tribute to her. And if you would, let's just pause for a minute of silence, if you don't mind. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. The agenda tonight, we first thing is to see if there's any changes we want to make to the agenda, and I think there is a couple proposed. I know one we want to change to Quasi-Judicial and have a call for public hearing. Is that my understanding?
Mr. Mayor, we would like to recommend that you switch the order of the two quasi-judicials. It makes more sense to do the central first and then do the north, and so we misplaced that, so we would prefer to have the central first in the hearing and then the north second. Also, if you remember at the last meeting, we had a postponement or TBD on Carolina Legacy Volleyball public hearing, and that has been submitted. We did a preliminary review, and we think it'll be ready for the November 17th town board meeting. So if you would mind adding as your first item of business consideration of scheduling the public hearing for the Carolina Legacy Volleyball on November 17th.
And I have to recuse myself from that because I represent Dennis and Harriet Lewis, and this is their project, their building. So.
Okay, sounds good. All right, first, let me have a motion on the agenda. As changes we made. I got a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. All right, and now I think we'll take a motion on the public hearing, call for public hearing, November 17th, for the, you said the Carolina.
I believe it's Carolina Legacy Volleyball.
Okay. I hear a motion.
Yeah, I make a
Okay.
motion.
Is there a second? All right, April 2nd. So is any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. All right. And then we'll go into the first public hearing we're going to have is the number 2 item on the agenda from my understanding, which is this is a quasi-judicial case. So this is more of an evidentiary hearing It will be for case PR 2004, the Preserve and Jonesbury Road Central preliminary subdivision plat. So I'll call the case to order, and we'll go into the evidentiary hearing. The first item that we will do is have a procedural statement or statements from the attorney.
Mayor, if you wouldn't mind pausing for a moment and let the folks who want to participate in quasi-judicial hearing.
Okay, welcome on in. Okay, it's all yours, Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is case PR 2004. Quasi-judicial hearings have characteristics similar to court proceedings. Quasi-judicial decisions made by the board must be based only upon the evidence presented at this hearing and site visits by the board, if any. Witnesses must testify under oath or affirmation. The parties may be represented by legal counsel. The parties have the right to cross-examine witnesses. The parties have a right to object to improper testimony or evidence. There is a right to present rebuttal evidence. All evidence provided by witnesses must be competent and material. Unduly repetitious or irrelevant testimony may be barred. An attorney or party wishing to cross-examine a witness shall stand and wait to be recognized by the mayor. Normally, witnesses may testify only as to their personal knowledge of facts. With regard to competent evidence, North Carolina General Statute 160A 393 prohibits a person from giving opinions about scientific, technical, or other specialized subjects unless the person by knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education is in fact an expert on the subject. A person wanting to give an opinion as an expert must first state his or her qualifications to be an expert. North Carolina General Statute 160A 393 also specifically prohibits opinions that the use of property in a particular way would affect the value of other properties, or opinions that the increase in vehicular traffic resulting from a proposed development would pose a danger to the public safety unless the witness is an expert on that subject. And with that, we'll do the voir dire to ensure there are no precluding elements for any of the board members. A member shall not participate in this hearing if the member has a fixed opinion prior to the hearing that is not susceptible to change, has engaged in undisclosed ex parte communications, has a close familial, business, or other associational relationship with the applicant or an affected person, or has a financial interest in the outcome of the matter. And we'll do the questions one at a time as we normally do. Is any member predisposed to vote a particular way on this matter, such that his or her opinion is fixed and the evidence presented during this hearing is not likely to influence his or her decision?
No.
See that as unanimously no. Has any member discussed this matter with proponents, opponents, or others?
No.
Also unanimously no. Does any member have a close familial, business, or other associational relationship with the applicant or an aggrieved party?
No.
Also, all stated no. Does any member have a financial interest in the outcome of this matter? Also no for everyone. And while not a conflict of interest, specialized knowledge of members should be disclosed at the hearing. Does any member have particular knowledge or expertise regarding the site or the subject matter of this hearing? Has any member made a site visit? And all those answers, Mr. Mayor, appeared to be no. Is there any objection by any member of the board or by a party to the participation of any member on the basis of a conflict of interest?
No.
And hearing no objection, that's all I have for you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right. Madam Clerk, you mind swearing everybody in that want to give testimony? Let's do it one time. So everybody just stand where you are, straight up, and raise your right hands. Thank you. Okay. Well, at this point in time, I open the evidentiary hearing, and I'll call for staff report. Danny, you want to start us off?
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, I will do that for you. This is, as you already identified, as an evidentiary hearing for a preliminary plat, subdivision plat approval. This is to be reviewed by the town board, and this was specified in the special use permit that was issued for this development, that it would come in through as a quasi-judicial site plan review, which is what we're doing today. The proposal is 255 single-family lots located on 89.02 acres of land. It's zoned residential plan unit development at residential PUD. And in August 6, 2019, the town board approved a special use permit and a master plan for more than that. Now, they're doing less. I want to make it clear, they are doing less. They have revised and did a little bit shift of some lots and decreased. The original plan was for 261 single-family lots. So I wanted to explain why the difference, that they, with this new plan, they have revised it to reduce it a little bit, because they felt like, I guess, that some of the lots need to be adjusted. And of course, there's also 179 townhouses in this project.
Jay, did that change from last time? The
No.
townhouse?
Not to my knowledge. The proposed preliminary subdivision plat that you're going to see has been reviewed, and it does meet the provisions of the Rolesville Unified Development Ordinance for preliminary plats. The proposed 179 townhomes will be a separate site plan and preliminary plat approval, so that's not part of tonight's action. But just to let you know that it will come later, and there will be more specifics to address that when it comes through later. This is the location over here on your left. It's all vacant woods and farmland now. This is Jones Dairy Road. And this is Averitt Road. So this property fronts on Averitt Road and Jones Dairy Road. You previously considered the southern portion, which is the location I got here in the red on the south, is this area right here. This is where we're dealing with the central. And of course, again, as shown on the zoning map over here, you see it's all residential PUD. This is the preliminary plat. You have several maps in your packet that covers water, sewer, various elements of the plan. This is just the overall copy here, but just want to make reference to that in your packet. Again, here's the entrance. It has an opposite entrance exactly the same on the south side, so it will intersect at the same point. There's a second entrance here closer to the intersection of Averitt Road and Jones Dairy Road. And of course, this property along on the subdivision side does not run all the way to the corner, comes up short. This is a commercial tract in the plan. The PUD, this is the commercial tract. It's not part of this. And again, this is what I identified is the townhome section that will come to you later on the left side. The other entrance here on Averitt Road is to this location, so you have 3 points of entrance plus a connection over to Jones Dairy Farm subdivision. That's an existing street stub.
Okay, Danny, you mentioned that the commercial part is not a part of this, but it is a part of the PUD,
That's correct.
so it is a requirement.
It's not a requirement of this subdivision, but it is part of the master plan, which identifies this for commercial use.
Okay.
Where's the commercial use part? Is that identified on here as well?
No, because that's not part of this subdivision. This is only for the single-family lots of that master plan. And of course, you have the landscaping buffers identified here in the right-hand corner that were identified on the plat as it applies to the site. So, in summary, there is one particular element of the Technical Review Committee. I'm going to go ahead and present this out. From the City of Raleigh, Public Utilities has requested to be included as a condition of approval to be addressed during the appropriate construction drawing plans that will follow after this that's administratively approved. And one is sewer must be extended to upstream adjacent properties of these PIN numbers specifically identified, which is adjacent to that track. The existing 20-foot drainage and utility easement recorded in Jones Dairy Farm subdivision is shown to be a proposed route for sewer. These easements may not belong to the City of Raleigh and not viable for sewer installation, meaning that they have the right to use them. Question of it. And of course, the city attorney will be involved in that. If these easements were not adequate for all sewer site installation, off-site sewer easements must be reviewed by the City of Raleigh and recorded by deed prior to a CD approval. So in essence, they have to go obtain that easement if they wish to run it across the adjacent property that's off-site. And that's pretty common. But there's an indication that there may be a dedication, but it needs some title search. It's a legal question.
Danny, is this going to require a lift station? Or is this
No, it'll be gravity.
flow? This is gravity flow, okay.
Correct.
Annie, you said these things come later?
Yes. They will come later, but there's a condition that as staff, we will make sure it gets done before we approve the construction drawings. Prior to the approval of the CD, the project engineer must submit a downstream sewer capacity study in compliance with the City of Raleigh Public Utilities Department Handbook for review and approval. Any identified sewer pipes exceeding the allowable capacity must be permitted with a CD for replacement. What that means is that they've done a general evaluation, but the engineer has to do a very detailed documentation of the sewer flow and what's existing and the pipe size. And the City of Raleigh Public Utilities has a policy, when you get so much capacity, you have to do upgrade or replacement. So that's what this is conditioned. Now, these are all from the City of Raleigh. And of course, last, prior to approval of the construction drawings, the developer must obtain documentation from the Duke Energy power easement encroachment that they will be doing for the street right-of-ways and for water and sewer that crosses the existing 50-foot easement. So they got to get their blessings on that location and crossing. So those are the conditions specifically that you will see identified from us as staff, the Technical Review Committee, and Planning Board to be incorporated with the approval. So the Technical Review Committee has reviewed the proposed preliminary plat and recommends approval with the conditions as presented. Staff recommendation is the same, to approve the preliminary plat with the conditions as presented. We do find that it meets the conditions and requirements of the special use permit of the master plan, as well as the Unified Development Ordinance requirements for preliminary plats. And of course, the Planning Board on September 18th, 2020, favorably recommend approval of the proposed preliminary plat with the stated conditions from the City of Raleigh Public Utilities as presented. So with that, I'd just like to go on record just to present to you the memo that it was in the packet, as well as the attachments as part of the evidence for consideration of the public hearing today. And that's all I have to present at this time, Mayor.
Okay, any questions for Danny?
Danny, when the southern part was approved, there were road improvements on Jones Dairy Road that
That's
had been
correct.
made. Now, there will be also road improvements on the north side of Jones Dairy to complement this.
Yes, I did not get into that, but yes, there is specified in the plan.
Okay.
Phase 1, they will be doing turn lanes at the entrance for now. And then when phase 2 comes in, of north or south, they have to do the road improvements for the rest.
And it will eventually be a 3-lane road? With
4-lane.
4-lane road, okay, good, okay. What about the road improvements on Averitt Road?
Averitt Road does not have any road improvements from the community transportation plan. And it does, well, they will do lane turns. They will put in additional left turn lanes at the entrance right here. but it has no widening and curb and gutter from the 2002 Community Transportation Plan. It's a grass swale road. That's what's written in the memo.
It's a what?
Grass swales on either side, shoulders, grass shoulders with pavement, 2 lanes. It is not specified to be larger.
Yeah, and the traffic study does not require it.
No, the traffic study does require turn lanes.
Turn lanes, okay.
The turn lanes are right in there as I'm circling right here with the red dot.
Okay, all right.
I have a question on that, Danny. It says Avery Road calls for 2-lane improvements with grass shoulders and public sidewalks or left turn lanes between travel lanes at intersections as determined by the TIA study.
That's right, and that's what I was just referencing.
So that determination comes later.
It's already done.
No.
It'll be incorporated in the construction drawings, because that was presented at the special use permit for the master plan, and that is a condition that they have to install those.
So they're installing the grass shoulders.
You already have grass shoulders out there now. They will widening as you taper in and approach the intersection to where you get it wide enough to have a center turn lane
Right.
for the northbound, because you got it right here where I'm circling. That's the intersection. So you'll have a center turn lane to make a left turn in
Off of what road?
on Averett Road as you're coming from Jones Dairy Road going towards 98. At the entrance, you'll have a left turn lane with stacking to accommodate cars to stop, wait till traffic clears to make their left turn. And the lanes will be widened to accommodate a 3-lane road section there, just at the, based off the distance back with a tapering specified in the previous traffic impact analysis.
I guess my question was the OR in there.
Oh, it was just identify both. That there's sidewalks, this is the road, and there's a turn lane.
Okay, that was confusing to me, but thank you. I got it.
Just at different segments of the road.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it doesn't apply the whole stretch.
Danny, at the previous one, I remember Mr. Garcia having an issue with the congestion, and there was a discussion about a stoplight at the intersection of Jones Dairy and Averett Road. Is that going to happen?
Yes, and in you already have a copy of the order for the special use permit, and also I referenced that particular in the traffic impact analysis of the memo, and that traffic warrants is what has to be done first.
In other words,
And the
that's
trigger of that is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
that's dictated by DOT.
Yes, they will be making the determination, but
Okay.
the trigger of the minimum period, maximum period we can go is 24 months after the first certificate of occupancy for the first home, and within 24 months, there has to be a warrant study reviewed by DOT. And if it turns it down, there's also there's a continuation of review, within a period of time. Also, the provision in there, if we've determined that there's an issue of traffic developing faster than that, we have the right to call it earlier.
And the traffic signal will be put in at the expense of the developer.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's all spelled out. And that was previously determined by the special use permit.
okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, I just have a quick question, and I think I'm getting my streets confused. So, sidewalks
Within the development,
on the outside, on Avery, no,
There-
Jones Dairy.
Jones Dairy will have sidewalks on both sides
Okay,
where the road is being improved.
okay.
There's also a greenway trail going through this development, and the greenway trail will be pulled in.
What kind of sidewalks are they? Meandering or
They're straight.
straight?
Standard straight sidewalks.
I don't know.
There was occasion you asked for a meandering. I know the previous mayor asked for it, but it's not necessarily a standard. I would tell you a straight sidewalk is less maintenance for the town.
So it's not curb and gutter though. It's just,
It is curb and gutter
So it's curb,
on Jones Dairy Road.
curb and gutter and sidewalk.
But now Averett has a sidewalk with grass shoulders and ditches between the travel lanes and the
That
sidewalk.
wouldn't be entering.
That is not necessarily going to be meandering, no.
Sheila got a question?
Got a couple questions. you said we have the right to require what earlier? It
I was
wasn't
talking, I believe, the traffic impact analysis and the warrant. The warrant analysis, if we get it done within the 24 months of the first CO, and they turn it down, we have the right to go call for another one within a reasonable time. And if conditions, congestion, traffic, or even an accident, and we don't want to happen that way, but if it did, we can then call for another study.
So if DOT turns it down, it's kind of like we can appeal it? Is that what you're saying?
Well, what will happen is you'll keep applying until it does. The traffic engineer that did the study, and I can let him answer that question, did determine that there would be a point that would be passed.
Okay, just clarifying what you meant by that. And then, just for my own understanding, what is a street tree? It was referenced in there as a street tree. Does that mean a tree close to the street?
A tree within the front of the lot,
In the front of the lot, meaning on the lot?
on the lot, yes.
Okay. I was like, it's not in the street? I'm confused.
No, it's not in the street.
Street tree. Okay,
It'll be back behind, it'll be in the lot, but the purpose is to get some trees in there.
perfect. Thank you, Dan.
Yes.
Any other questions for Danny? Anybody? Okay, then this application and staff report are submitted into evidence. Is there any attorneys for the applicant? There is one? Okay, well, we'll hear your opening statements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the board, sort of an unusual, and first let me thank you for allowing us to do the central section first, because the central seems to be closer oriented and impacts Jones Dairy Road, as previously we discussed, a few weeks back, on the south section, which has been approved. So a couple things just to remind this board of again too. This preliminary plat is submitted in accordance with an already approved special use permit 1806 master plan. And as Danny has noted, the staff, the board, the technical review committee, planning board, and planning staff recommendations have all found it to be in compliance with that already approved plan. So it's a little bit unusual. The only reason we're back here tonight is because that special use permit required us to come back and submit this to you again. A couple other points I'll just make. Our subdivision plat meets all the Rolesville Unified Development Ordinance provisions. Proposed public streets, sidewalks, greenway, mail kiosks, contains 16.03% of open space area, whereas 10% is required. I'll also mention, and it's already been mentioned by staff, but we did even reduce the number of lots. We were not comfortable with how some of the lots were laid out, and so we voluntarily lost 6 lots as part of this development. Now, several weeks back, I mentioned already that we dealt with the south section, which has been approved. At that time, the applicant picked up on some comments from the board. Mr. Wilson and several other raised concerns about the roadway improvements. In noting these concerns and the applicant desiring to be a good partner to the town of Rolesville, and also understanding this board's obligations to safeguard the public funds that you are entrusted with, may, for the first time, at least as long as I've been representing anyone, offer a self-imposed condition. Concerns were raised last time that, in fact, we were worried about, well, what if something goes bad? What if we have 2008, 2009 again? Where's the funding for these improvements going? So what we propose tonight is to impose a condition on ourselves and then present testimony, which will make you guys hopefully understand why we're willing to do this. But we're going to impose a condition that the developer, and let me back up a moment. Danny did a good job of explaining kind of what the special use permit provisions were. Basically, in that special use permit, the town reserved the right and could request a valuation of Jones Dairy and Averitt Road pursuant to, this is provision 10 of the special use, at the intersection 24 months after the first issued certificate of occupancy for any uses completed either in the south or central portions, if there is evidence of developing traffic congestions or problems. So what we're going to propose tonight is that regardless of what that study states, whether the improvements are needed or not, the developer shall deliver to the town an irrevocable standby letter of credit in an aggregate amount equal to the cost of the recommended improvements in the traffic impact analysis report at such time as the town initially request a valuation of Jones Dairy and Averitt Road in accordance with the provisions of Section 10 of the special use permit. We wanted to eliminate any concerns that the developer would not have cash on the side to make sure we could make those improvements moving forward. That cash not only impacts, of course, what we're proposing tonight as we address the central, but it also goes back and hopefully satisfies some concerns that the board may have raised in connection with the approval of the south. We're not going back and revisiting the south, but we are proposing to do that and imposing a self-condition in that regard. Now, we're prepared to offer testimony to the board supporting each finding of fact required to the board to approve our preliminary subdivision plat. Okay? Any questions of me before I call our witnesses?
State your name, sorry.
I'm sorry. I am Ken Edwards, law firm of Gwynn and Edwards, Wake County Bar, 5909 Falls of Noose Road, Suite 200, Raleigh, NC 27609. Thank you.
I may
Okay.
call your witnesses.
Thank you. We're going to call Mr. Mac McIntyre of CAA Engineering first.
Good evening. Basically, I'm just here to answer any questions y'all might have.
Commissioner board. That was easy.
What's he doing? Thank you. Okay.
As you know, members of the board, we do have certain findings that we have to place into the record. So therefore, I'm going to directly question Mac and ask him to answer some questions for you. Mac, were you the engineer who prepared the plans and submitted the plans for this preliminary plat?
Yes, sir.
And is it safe to say that as the engineer who submitted all these plans, you're familiar with the Rolesville UDO?
Yes.
All right. Do you believe that proposed development and or use will materially endanger the public health or safety?
No.
Do you believe that proposed development and or use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining property?
No.
Do you believe that proposed development and or use will be in harmony with the scale, bulk, coverage, density, and character of the neighborhood in which it is located?
Yes.
Do you believe that proposed development or use will generally conform with the comprehensive plan as other official plans adopted by the town?
Yes.
Do you believe that proposed development and or use is appropriately located with respect to transportation facilities, water and sewer supply, fire and police protection, and similar facilities?
Yes.
And do you believe that proposed development or use complies with all applicable requirements of the ordinance of road?
Yes.
No further questions of this?
Thank you.
One quick question. It's gonna be kind of hard to explain, but there's a piece of property. It's lot 118. It's on Alfalfa Lane.
Yeah,
And the
Danny,
corner-
can you pull that up by locating it by chance?
I'm sure they've looked at this already. I just wanted to question just to make sure. It's so right up there's a wetland area at the very top of that drawing. It's kind of hatched in, yeah, right there. So
Yes.
it clips the corner of that property. Will that property have any issues with that clipping that wetland area?
No, we're going through the proper permitting
Okay.
with wetland permitting.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
It also looks like, Commissioner, that the building envelope is
Stay within that.
outside.
Okay.
And that will be dealt with in the permit.
Okay, thank you.
Members of the board, we're going to call Mr. Ronald Stevenson of Ramey Kemp now for traffic.
Good evening, everyone. Ronald Stevenson with Ramey Kemp and Associates, 5808 Farrington Place, Raleigh, 27609. I am the traffic engineer, and our company prepared the traffic impact analysis for the project. It has been some time ago, but all of the improvements and recommendations that were identified in there are certainly applicable to the preliminary plat subdivision in front of you. And I think everybody's done a pretty good job of talking about the road improvements that are proposed and will be required, as well as the condition that the attorney covered. So I'll be glad to answer any additional questions that you have.
And I do have some questions for the witness. Mr. Stevenson, do you believe that proposed development and or use is appropriately located with respect to transportation facilities?
I do.
And do you believe that proposed development and or use will not cause undue traffic congestion or create a traffic hazard?
It will not. Thank you.
Any other questions
Thanks, sir.
for this witness? No?
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
We have no further witnesses this time.
Mayor, if I may, a clarification, if I may offer, just for clarity, dealing with the condition about the guarantee, you said 100%. Normally guarantees are 125%. And that dollar amount is determined through a review jointly between your engineers offered to us, and then we get a review, independent review through our consultant engineers to determine that value. Is that acceptable with the condition?
May I have one moment?
Sure.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Thanks to the attorney.
Say it, but I think it's
Yes, I should have known that.
They have to consent to it.
But they don't have to say yes when it comes.
They could not say yes.
How are you saying, darn it,
That was more money.
Consented.
Thank you. Thank you. For the record, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is it any other witnesses, Mr. Attorney? That's it? Okay. All right, I'll call for any evidence from any parties in opposition and their witnesses. So anybody in opposition? Okay, come up. George, state your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is George Garcia, 524 Averett Road. We own a property jointly. My wife and I own a property there and the remainder acreage behind. I'm a retired petroleum engineer, and we have a concern. And it's been the same concern for the South Project, the Center Project, and the North Project. Reason being that a updated traffic study has not been submitted to our knowledge. Last time I talked to DOT. And you're progressing without having a full knowledge of what the impacts are going to be. There's a cumulative impact that, based on the parameters of the study, don't really show. There's a collateral impact, people coming into the area that are not related to the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 subdivisions in the area. They're coming in to provide services, and for whatever reasons come in. There's a traffic jam there. And that's a concern we have. The other thing is, we've not heard that the project has contacted Wake Electric on the right-of-way, which also impacts us further south, what the impacts are going to be there. Okay? And this goes across to the 2 projects that are being reviewed today. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. Any questions for George before he steps away?
I'm just a little curious. What does Wake Electric have to do with what he was?
I'm sorry?
What does Wake Electric have to do with?
I can't hear you.
Wake Electric was contacted to do what?
We have not seen that Wake Electric has been contacted for the impact on the right-of-way. There's a right-of-way that goes through that project and it extends all the way across in that area.
I don't have a question for George, but I do have a question for the gentleman who is the traffic impact. I just want to know, was future development taken into consideration when you did your TIA?
Thank you, George.
That's a very good question, and yes, it was. And we had, not only did we take the existing traffic that we counted, and all of this, mind you, was certainly pre-COVID. We took that traffic and we grew it up by 3% per year, but we also added in traffic from Perry Farms, Elizabeth Heights, the Thales Academy, so we added traffic for that, and then Averett Ridge. So those were the additional developments that we assumed that they were fully built out and added that traffic in on top of a growth of 3% per year of traffic. So we are certainly accounted for the future traffic in the area. And one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about the last few months is how COVID is going to impact traffic in the future. I think we're probably, although traffic volumes and NCDOT is saying traffic volumes are starting to come back, however, they're coming back and not peaking as much. So the rush hours aren't quite as rushed as they were before. And so that, I don't know if that's going to be the new norm or not, but I certainly suspect that the traffic may not ever be exactly how it was before. It doesn't mean it won't be heavy, but it may not be exactly the same as it was before.
But you did not factor that into your numbers?
No, sir. And the reason why we did not, well, certainly it was pre-COVID before we even knew about COVID. But the COVID situation, if we did an updated study right now, we would find that traffic's lower than it was when we did our original traffic study. And I think the COVID impact, if it has an impact on traffic, it would be to lower the traffic from what our original projections were. So.
Thank you.
There's also a new development that I don't believe you mentioned. The new one that's coming in beside Watkins Farm.
That's Elizabeth Heights.
Elizabeth Heights, we did have, okay.
Chandler's Ridge.
What is it? That's it.
Chandler's Ridge.
Chandler's Ridge. I don't think that was on the books at the time. When was this study done? 17, 18?
This was, yes, it was done in 2018.
Right. So I don't think Chandler's Ridge was on the books at that time. So that is a new development that is right there at that intersection.
Well, that's a good question. One of the things that one of the reasons we do this sort of double counting of growth is for things like that may happen. So we took the count existing traffic that's out there and we went ahead and grew that up at 3% per year to account for growth of traffic. But then we also added in the developments that we knew at the time, that were approved or coming forward. So I feel like we're covered. As you heard Danny mention also, what typically happens in these traffic studies is we start out with a number of lots in a development that ends up being a little higher than what they build anyway. And you're kind of seeing that now with this. We start out with 260 some odd units and we're down to 255, I believe it was. So that's a pretty typical occurrence as well. So we actually have a little more traffic built into our traffic study than what we would actually expect to happen. So I think we'll be covered with that. And the traffic light issue that we talked about, any development traffic that is on the roads when we are out there 2 years after the first CO, we're going to pick that up. So that is going to be accounted for and in the field in 2 years from the first CO is part of the condition that was mentioned earlier. So if there's some huge development that comes in now and they start building, we're going to count that traffic when we're out there, and that's going to help warrant this improvement that we're talking about. And we're going to have to put it in or pay the money. Yeah. So so we're going to be actually counting the traffic that's there. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any issue with? I know we're talking all about Jones Dairy widening. Do we see any issue with Averett at that same intersection?
At the Jones Dairy intersection, There will be a need for a turn lane there, which has been identified. But with that, now one of the things that will happen when a light or a signal is put in at that intersection, it is going to stop the Averett traffic. So that is going to be a change for Averett traffic. They're going to have to stop now. But typically those lights are for the greater good, of the intersection and all movements there. So it does whatever the main road is. In this case, Averett will have to stop now, but it's typically when you have enough traffic there, it is for the greater good. So yeah, that has been considered.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other parties in opposition? Okay. Sure.
And Mr. Garcia brought up the point of Wake Electric.
Okay.
How does that play in? Do they supply electricity to some of this part of this property?
Can we have someone answer that
Just
question, please?
Duke Energy. Is it all Duke Energy?
Wake Electric has a transmission line that runs across the property. We'll be taking a road underneath, but we can't do that till we get our construction drawings done and submit it. We've already gotten preliminary okay that they're fine with the crossing, just certain standards. Minimum height separation between the power line and how the road grade's done.
And they're not planning to move anything then? You're not planning to move anything for them?
Keith, Keith might have to, no. We've tried to design around moving any poles.
For April's benefit, can we show that easement or
Yeah,
the power
it's
line?
page
I
26
appreciate
of 66.
Page 26?
Kind of runs right through the middle of it.
Yeah,
Looks like to
it
me.
does.
Yes, and there's no homes underneath it. There's,
Those three
there is
lines.
one road crossing, I believe. Is there more than one, Keith?
And I think that's Wake EMC, is that right?
Well, as far as getting power for individual lots, that's not an issue. I mean,
Right.
that's provided by the utility company.
I think
So-
this line that runs across is Wake EMC.
Wait, that's a Wake transmission line.
It's a
That doesn't even provide, that provides the high voltage power.
Right.
But the question was about the easement, I think, that the citizen asked.
Well,
Right, and that's gonna
there's
come
an
once you
existing
get the
easement, but we're working with.
construction drawings, right?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
just want to clarify. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That cleared up?
I was going to ask the same question, so.
Okay. All right. Since there is no other witnesses from either side, I will take a brief closing argument from the attorney.
Members of the board, this will be exceptionally brief. We have presented evidence tonight that each of the findings of fact necessary for you to approve our preliminary site plan have been met by competent and evidence and experts in their field. We therefore just ask that you approve our preliminary site plan approval in accordance with the staff recommendation, subject to the condition that we've self-imposed.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, I ask for any additional comments from the staff before we close this out.
No, Mayor, no additional comments.
Thank you. All right, not hearing any, I'll close the evidentiary hearing, and I will turn it over to the board for deliberation.
I move to approve the preliminary subdivision plat as a quasi-judicial site plan, public hearing required by case SUP 18-06 for PR 20-04, the preserve at Jones Dairy Central, with the requested conditions from the City of Raleigh Public Utilities based on the evidence and testimony received at the hearing to determine the findings of fact.
Thank you. I have a motion. Is there a second?
We need to add anything in for the electric as well. I know it mentions the City of Raleigh Public. Did we need to add, was there anything else electric-wise we needed to worry about, easements or anything?
You talking about the
Ocean.
sewer stuff?
No, there was something else.
I think that it says Duke Power, but it also includes Lake Electric as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
In the event it was missed, I may have missed it. Does the motion reference the additional condition?
and the additional condition that was self-imposed by the developer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, let's make sure we add that for the record, Madam Clerk. The additional condition that was offered by the applicant. Okay, have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
We get a second?
I'll second.
I thought I had a second. I didn't?
Paul
Okay.
asked a question.
All right, got a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not hearing any. Thank you. The motion passed. Thank you. Appreciate it. No one goes anywhere because we got another one to do here. This is public hearing, quasi-judicial case PR 20-02, the Preserve of Jones Dairy North Preliminary Subdivision Plat. So, Mr. Attorney, do you want to do your procedural statement again?
Mr. Mayor, unless the staff is aware of additional participants, parties, or opponents, my thought would be we could incorporate the instructions previously, and I would just go through the voir dire questions, and we could say the rules are the same, but scores have doubled or something along those lines.
Does any parties object to that or have any objections to that? Not hearing any?
Check if there's a north.
If there's additional, we can do it.
Okay.
Starting to get cold in here.
Anyone? No? Okay. Then we'll just do the voir dire and move on.
Okay.
A member shall not participate in this hearing if the member has a fixed opinion prior to the hearing that is not susceptible to change, has engaged in undisclosed ex parte communications, has a close familial business or other associational relationship with the applicant or an affected person, or has a financial interest in the outcome of the matter. Is any member predisposed to vote a particular way on this matter such that his or her opinion is fixed and the evidence presented during this hearing is not likely to influence his or her decision?
No.
Hearing all no. Has any member discussed this matter with proponents, opponents, or others?
No.
Again, unanimously no. Does any member have a close familial, business, or other associational relationship with the applicant or with an aggrieved party?
No.
No.
Also no. Does any member have a financial interest in the outcome of this matter?
No.
Unanimously no. While not a conflict of interest, specialized knowledge of members shall be disclosed. Does any member have particular knowledge or expertise regarding this site or the subject matter of this hearing?
No.
Even though you've heard about the South and the Central. Has any member made a site visit?
No.
No.
Mr. Mayor, hearing no, is there any objection by a member of the board or by any party to the participation of any member on the basis of a conflict of interest?
No.
Hearing none.
Sounds good. Thank you. Okay. I open the evidentiary hearing, and I will call for staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. As you've already introduced, this is PR 2002, Preserve Jones Dairy Road North, preliminary subdivision plat. This is coming before you as stated in the memo based upon the special use permit that required a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing as a site plan for when the preliminary plat comes before the board. Now, this proposed subdivision is 136 single-family lots on 49.17 acres that's owned residential plan unit development. This location is between Perry Farm subdivision and Elizabeth Springs that's under construction right now, and I'll point that out when I get to the map.
Danny, I have a quick question for you.
Yes,
This sheet that you provided us with kind of the overview has 134 and you have 136.
I stand corrected.
So it's 134.
I'll have to check the numbers on it, but that's what I thought it was. But if I made an error, I apologize. Yeah, I had 136. Maybe I did a typo error. What you have on the sheet is correct.
Okay.
134. So again, as I referenced, this is based upon special use permit and master plan that had originally 141 single-family lots, so this is less, and 63 townhomes. Now, the 63 townhomes is a separate site plan like the other case, and the preliminary plat will come to you separately and is not incorporated in this plan. I will point out the location when I get to the map. And of course, the proposed preliminary subdivision plat meets all the provisions of the Rolesville Unified Development Ordinance for preliminary plats. So help you with orientation. This is the existing recorded Perry Farms. That's the dedicated, and you've got houses in there now. This is phase 1. But this is Perry Farms right here in this R2 SUD area, or in this field as I'm showing on the left side of the aerial. The site is outlined in red. It does not front on Averitt Road. The access will come from the existing street stub here, which you'll see on the plat, as well as Winter Springs Drive out of Jones Dairy Farm subdivision. And of course, Elizabeth Springs is to the north. It's under construction of phase 1. But in phase 2, there will be an access when it's built to be a third access to this location here. So there'll be 3 accesses from other subdivisions that get to this site,
Wow, that's interesting.
Where's the third one gonna be again?
right in this area. I'll show you on the site plan in a second. I can zoom in if you needed to clarify. But there's 3 accesses. They will be coming from within the subdivision because this track is, in essence, landlocked. But that's why the street steps are there, to provide access to it. It is, like I said, residential PUD, as you see by the notation on the zoning map on the right. And of course, there is a pond right here. You'll see that information when you get to the next sheet. So this is the access from Perry Farms, which will probably be the primary access for construction of the development itself. Will be the main entrance to get to the site. This is Winter Springs Drive. During the normal construction, we don't allow access to the site. They usually manage that until the streets are improved and complete, to which they are recorded with the final plat and dedicated. And that's when the street will be open, because during that period of housing construction, you normally have to keep it open for emergency vehicles in case there's an accident or a fire event inside during the construction. The third access from Elizabeth Springs is here. This is part of phase 2. It is not constructed yet. They are building and will be recording phase 1, which is up on Averitt Road. This is back into the property, but it will be constructed later in this development. I do not have a timeline for them because they haven't shared with us because they haven't finished phase 1. But it will be built if everything progresses with the subdivision of Elizabeth Springs.
And what's the name of that one?
Elizabeth Springs. Oh, the street, I apologize, I don't have the street name. Should be either
You're saying that's phase 2 of Elizabeth Springs?
phase 2 of Elizabeth Springs. And my point is not built today. But they'll have 2 accesses, and this will be the primary one through Perry Farms, which is into town. This is in the county. It's not in the town of Rolesville.
That's in is it in Jones Dairy or?
Jones Dairy Farm subdivision. And like I said, during the construction, we will be requiring them to barricade, keep traffic from going through during the construction. Once the streets are complete and the plat's recorded as a public street, it will be open.
So they have to use the one at the bottom.
Through Perry Farms, yes. Oh, I apologize, I enlarged this because that map was a little small, but if there's any questions you want to ask, there is a greenway trail that continues from the lower part that goes through Perry Farms and connects to Elizabeth Springs to the north. So that's this line here, and that's from our master greenway plan.
So the question I have about that's a townhome area, which doesn't go with this, but there's an existing pond there. Is that pond going to be drained then to put in?
I'll let them answer that question. Yeah, you're seeing it, don't show the pond. And it may be already been done, I don't know. I'll let them answer that question. So again, there's also conditions offered by the City of Raleigh Public Utilities for this preliminary plat that they like to be addressed and accommodated when the construction drawing plans are submitted and reviewed and approved. So one is prior to approval, the engineer must submit a downstream sewer capacity compliance with the City of Raleigh Public Utilities Handbook for review and approval. Any identified sewer pipes exceeding allowable capacity must be permitted with a CD for replacement. Prior to CD approval, the developer must obtain the documentation from Duke Energy encroachment agreement for right-of-ways with water and sewer crossings, the existing Duke Power easement. And I believe that was noted from them, from Duke Power, but I believe that's Wake Electric. So it applies to whoever is responsible for it. We use their wording. And prior to approval to the CDs, because the development is relying on Elizabeth Springs to provide downstream sewer to this site, I can go back and point what we're talking about after I read this. If the downstream sewer outfall permitted within the Elizabeth Springs CD, its construction drawings has already been approved, is not constructed and accepted by the City of Raleigh prior to the reserve at Jones Dairy Road North construction drawings, the reserve at Jones Dairy Road will be responsible for the design and obtaining all off-site sanitary sewer easements and construction of the downstream sewer outfall line. And I'll let the engineer explain a little bit more on that. But if I go back to the map, this is Elizabeth Springs, and I'll let them address the details, but there is an proposed outfall line that comes up to connect to this property because this drains in that direction, and that line's not built today. If Phase 2 has not constructed and been installed, as based off the City of Raleigh's condition, if they have not built it and accepted it, the burden then falls onto this applicant to obtain that off-site. That's the easement as well. Now, City of Raleigh indicates that they want, when the plat comes in on Elizabeth Springs on Phase 1, have already indicated to me for Elizabeth Springs that they want an easement, a minimum of the easement to be recorded. But the actual sewer line will not come until they're planning to do Phase 2. If it hasn't been constructed based off this condition, it does fall onto the applicant to do so. Does that clarify that particular one that's different? Okay. It's in the condition, yes. Oops, went the wrong way, excuse me. So, to wrap up, Technical Review Committee has reviewed the proposed preliminary plat and recommends approval with the conditions as presented. Staff recommendation is to approve the preliminary plat with the conditions as presented, and of course, as identified previously, I've identified it complies with the Rolesville Unified Development Ordinance for preliminary plats. The Planning Board on September 28th favorably recommend approval of the preliminary subdivision plat with the stated conditions from the City of Raleigh Public Utilities as presented. So with that said, I offer the staff memo as well as the attachments as evidence for the hearing, and that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, any questions for Danny while he's up? Okay, not hearing any, then Danny, we will accept the application and the staff report as to be admitted in evidence. So thank you very much, appreciate that. Okay, Mr. Attorney, you want to give an opening statement?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, it bears repeating that the north section of the preserve at Jones Dairy was also approved as part of Special Use Permit 18-07. The submission you're going to hear about tonight, this proposed preliminary subdivision plat meets all the Rolesville Unified Development Ordinance provisions with proposed public streets, sidewalks, greenways, mail kiosk parking, and contains 15.5% of open space, with 10% being required. I'm going to move straight to witnesses.
Okay, sounds good. Call your witness.
We're going to have Mac McIntyre of CAA Engineering first.
To try to address initially your question about the pond, there was a wetland, a core permit, and the pond was drained. It's dried. There's now a stream buffer that's recorded. You can see it. It's shaded right there.
Okay.
That was recorded, and that's part of the DWQ filings.
And we won't have any issues with the greenway crossing that.
Yes, sir. We just did one for Carlton Park. So, yeah.
All right, thank you.
But basically, answer any other questions y'all might have.
Yep. Any other questions, board? I think the attorney has some questions for you.
Okay.
If there are no questions from the board, Mr. McIntyre, were you the engineer who submitted the plans
Yes.
to this board?
Yes.
As the engineer who submitted those plans, are you familiar with the Rolesville UDO and ordinances governing development?
Yes.
Based on that expertise, do you believe that the proposed development and/or use will not materially endanger public health or safety?
I don't.
That the proposed development and/or use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining property?
It will not.
That the proposed development and/or use will be in harmony with the scale, bulk, coverage, density, and character of the neighborhood in which it is located?
Yes.
That the proposed development and/or use will generally conform with the comprehensive plan and other official plans adopted by the town?
Yes.
That the proposed development and/or use is appropriately located with respect to transportation facilities, water and sewer supply, fire and police protection, and similar facilities?
Yes.
And that the proposed development and/or use comply with all applicable requirements of this ordinance?
Yes.
No further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have other witnesses, Mr. Attorney?
We're going to call Ronell Stevenson of Ramey Kemp.
Thank you.
Good evening again. Ronald Stevenson with Ramey Kemp and Associates, 5808 Farrington Place, Raleigh, 27609. As with the previous matter or previous case, our company did prepare a traffic impact analysis that included this property and the development, and the road improvements that are associated with it will mitigate the impacts of the development. And I'll answer any questions that you have.
Questions from the board on this particular case? Not hearing any?
Mayor, Mr. Stevenson, as the traffic study engineer, do you believe that proposed development and/or use is appropriately located with respect to transportation facilities?
Yes.
And do you also believe that proposed development and/or use will not cause undue traffic congestion or create a traffic hazard?
No, it will not. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all your witnesses?
May I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Of the attorney probably. May I ask, do you know if this looks like a assumed phase, just one phase? Is that a proper assumption, and do you know if you're going to do this north first before the central or central first? No any order yet?
Let's see if Mr. Well, I'm sure the answer to that question is it will vary in accordance with demand and contracts for lots. While we do have a preliminary phasing plan, only because we got approval and construction drawings are in on the south section, most likely we will begin that section first because this is running maybe a month or two behind the other sections. But as is the case in any development, once you get into phasing, for example, in the south, we have a proposed phase one, which preliminarily looks like 122 lots. The fact of the matter is we may very well make that phase 1A, 1B, 1C, again, depending on the demand and factors such as economic conditions.
The reason I ask, Mayor and Board, is that I go to the previous conditions outlined for both approvals, and I get to the Greenway conversation, and this condition talks about this Greenway shall be completed before any development on this site. Whereas the central has several phases in building of the Greenway throughout. So I was trying to get at we kind of knew the timing of a complete build out of Greenway or not, as these two connected. There's not a phase for this Greenway in this plat. And maybe it's too complicated tonight. I think it is. I think it's one that we may want to look at when we get into construction drawings to see how they would connect and be completed timing-wise over the development of both subdivisions.
You had something you want to add, Dan?
I can clarify that right quickly. In your packet is the next sheet, identified as C3. Can I quickly switch right quick? There is a phasing line shown on there.
Sheet 9 for our packet.
There we go. So that would be in phase 1. Just point of information.
Yeah.
It could point by the
Yeah, I think his
raised, but that is in the first phase.
question more pertaining to the timing of it, so,
Yeah, our preference is always try and get them all done together,
yeah.
right? But I do note that the Greenbelt on Central also has roads associated with it, so it may not work, but I would like for the record to make sure that when we sit down with construction drawings on both, we try and match them up, that we make a best effort to try and have some continuity in greenway development of both subdivisions, if possible.
Yeah, and this does not go to Central. This separate, this south is,
Oh, this is not Central connected?
no, this is not Central, Jason. It's Perry
Okay.
Farms
That
and
question.
then Elizabeth Springs to the north.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Danny. All right, is that all your witnesses? Okay. I will now call for any evidence from parties in opposition and their witnesses. George, come on up again. I think we got your name and all, so you good on that?
Hey, my name is George Garcia, and our comment is fairly similar to the prior project. We have a concern about the traffic. There's a issue with not updated traffic studies. And also, in our land, we have set it up as a carbon, try to offset the carbon print that is going to be generated present and the future. We've planted it in trees and the right-of-way. The reason we asked about the right-of-way is because we have planted it in pollinating plants for the birds and the bees in the area. Okay? So, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, George. Thanks. Okay, any other parties present in opposition or want to speak? We're not hearing any, then any closing arguments from attorney?
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, again, I believe we've presented evidence tonight by competent witnesses and experts in their field, and we ask the board to approve the proposed preliminary subdivision plat as part of the site plan approval process as per Special Use Permit 1807, as being in compliance with that master plan.
Thank you very much. Okay, before I close the hearing, Danny, is any comments from the staff?
The only, Mayor, I'd like to just confirm what Commissioner Sutton raised, that the number of lots, I'm sorry, I made an error in the memo, and the presentation is 134, as noted on the plat. So it's 134 single-family lots.
Yeah, that's on the sheet that we got with the summary.
It's on your sheet, but I also checked the documentation on the plat itself, and that is correct, 134. I apologize for the error. And we have no more further comments.
And this sheet is tremendously helpful, because I'm visual, so thank you for doing that.
It really is.
Nice job. Thank you, Danny. Okay, I'll close the evidentiary hearing. And at this time, I'll turn it over to the board for any deliberations.
I move to approve the preliminary subdivision plats as a quasi-judicial site plan public hearing required by case SUP 18-07 for PR 20-02, the preserve at Jones Dairy Road North, with the requested condition from the City of Raleigh Public Utilities based on the evidence and testimony received at the hearing to determine the findings of fact.
Thank you. And Mr. Attorney, I don't think I heard any additional things being added to this one.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. So I got a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All second. And we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion, board? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Not hearing any. Motion approved. Thank you, board. Appreciate that. Thank you for everybody coming out tonight. Let's get through this last item and then we'll take a break before we go in this executive session, if that's okay for everybody. The last item on the business agenda is adoption of ordinance to prevent vehicle parking in roundabouts. This is ordinance 2020, I think, 008. So who's presenting that? You are?
Mr. Mayor, in front of you is a ordinance amendment that is Title 7 Traffic Code Parking Regulations, Section 71.13A. We've recently had some concerns expressed in Carlton Point about cars parking in roundabouts. Doesn't make much sense, but they are. And we thought for clarity's sakes, we wanted to be able to address those and make sure that that parking is not legal. They do get in the way. They are in the way of they could be in the way of passing traffic. And so it was a conclusion of the chief and attorney that the best way to address that would be to add to the parking prohibited ordinance that I outlined new section 12 within a roundabout. As simple as that. Therefore, there's no question you cannot park in a roundabout. And while the attorney was at it, he also has made a further amendment to kind of move a former section 11 down to section 3 because of the continuity of the ordinance, and then added new section 12 within a roundabout. If adopted, what we would do is then have the ability to clearly enforce that. We would probably more likely sign roundabouts, kind of strategic, very minimal, but strategic, so it's very clear that you cannot park in a roundabout lane.
Yeah, that was
I have a
my
question, though.
That was my question was, how would people know not to? So you said it will be some signs installed.
Paint the curb with signage. I think signage is our preferred methodology.
Michelle, do you have a question too?
I just wanted to, a little bit more clarity. It says, 11 says a whole lot, and then 12 just says within a roundabout.
Huh?
So I'm not really sure what that, is that because of the 25 feet now? It says that in 11 already, so why is it saying it again in 12? No, maybe.
No,
Madam
11
Commissioner,
got
yeah.
rewritten, changed it to number 3. Do you want to explain the modification?
Sure. Former subsection 11 within 25 feet from the intersection was just relocated to number 3, which then shifted everything down. The reason I moved it to number 3 is that immediately before it is subsection 2, which talks about parking in the intersection. 3 now is close to the intersection. So just to have that be easier for folks to find as something to review, as we know that our citizens are often browsing the town code. So for consistency. And the other things are also for style consistency throughout.
What do you
On
mean?
page 45, Michelle.
I am on page 44.
5 has its changes.
45 explains a little bit.
Yeah, it's more detailed when you get there.
I just wanted to make a clarification for the record. You said Carlton Point. Did you mean Cedar Lakes? Because it's Carlton Lakes HOA, so very easy to mix them up. But Cedar Lakes, right?
That's
And that brings me to, I guess, the last point is, Cedar Lakes has a house in the roundabout. So that means they can't park in front of their house.
And they park there. They are in a traffic lane.
Is that the house that
I
presented
don't know
these?
if that's the house. had several complaints.
And that's even dangerous
The
because
HOA made the request.
HOA made the
buses
request.
coming around the corner when the cars are parked where that house is. I've seen buses come around the corner and had to like stop and really adjust because of the way the cars are parked on that side of the street. Not all the times, I just happen to see it once. It's 2 houses down from exactly where it is.
And that's the only house I know of in town that's in the round. It's in the
Boy,
roundabout.
we dropped the ball on that one, didn't we? Well, of course, it was before our time for us to even improve something like that, but that's beyond.
Yeah, so this doesn't require any public input then.
This would,
Published on the agenda as an agenda item.
it needs to be published, adopted at a regular meeting, and then, as this is the first time it's appearing before you, it would need to be adopted by a supermajority.
All right, I'll make a motion to adopt an ordinance.
Hold on, Jim.
I would, and you know, I don't think this is an emergency situation, maybe it is, but if somebody want to come and speak on it, I'd like to hear them. You know, especially the ones that's involved in it.
Was it addressed before? That would be my
Want
question.
to continue it?
I think we'll I'll suggest we at least have if somebody want to come in and make a public comment, that we'll hear it. I'm a little hesitant to prove something that we don't have any input from the public on.
I wasn't aware that there was a house there, but do you know if the people have been notified?
The request
Kelly.
came from the roundabout, the HOA. I could ask them if they did that, but I do not know if they have notified anybody per se. I'm trying to find the emails.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that a roundabout is arguably a form of an intersection, and it may already be prohibited under our existing ordinance. This may truly just be a clarity item for the benefit of the police department.
Nothing in their bylaws. That's why they brought it to the town. Or-
They do not regulate streets.
Up to you. I mean, if you guys want to, we can approve it, but
Let me
I'd
read.
like to hear more about it.
If you'd like me to read the original email from, good afternoon, I hope you're doing well. I manage a community in Rolesville called Cedar Lakes. There is a big concern about people parking in a roundabout in the community. Would the town be willing to add no parking signs? This is actually a safety concern. Thank you in advance. Debbie Hayes, community manager. She does provide one picture of the roundabout in question that's most problematic. I do not, yes, there is one house that fronts that roundabout.
yeah.
But they do have side parking prior to the roundabout.
Yeah, no, I think it's the right thing to do. I don't think we need parking roundabout, but I think as a courtesy to our citizen that we should let them know ahead of time that we are actually discussing it.
And I would like to know if the HOA did contact the
Mhm.
homeowner. And if, as the attorney said, it may already be in our, what'd you say, code? What is it? Yeah,
I've
I'd
never
like to
heard
know if it's already there.
of anybody allowing a
I
municipality
can't imagine there
allowing.
wasn't some mitigation for that, because I don't think that would.
Yes, Mr. Attorney?
Commissioners need, the provision that you have already prohibits parking in intersections or within 25 feet of intersections. The question raised by the chief is a roundabout an intersection,
Gotcha.
right? Rather than have that question before a district court judge, we could just clarify our ordinance.
What's the wish of the board? I'll leave it to the wish of the board on this one.
If you wish to delay, then I would write back the HOA manager and ask her to notify the property owner in question if there are any concerns or not, and then we would try and gather that information in advance before your next consideration. And advise the property owner that there's potential ordinance forthcoming. There have not been any warnings issued or anything like that.
But this would cover the whole town, not just that one,
That's right.
that one.
And that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I think we should table it. And do you need a motion to table? Okay, all right, let's table it and give Kelly time to do his due diligence.
Thank you. I think that's just courtesy there. All right. So that brings us to the end of the agenda, and before we go into recess, I just want to make a couple comments. First of all, we're putting together the committee for the UDO rewrite. We've got a bunch of good folks on that committee, and I guess at sometimes maybe next meeting we'll give an update on who the final people are. But there was a recommendation to have another member from the board here, the Board of Commissioners, and I kind of left it up to Liaison to give me a recommendation of what she thought would be a good person to do that. So, do you got any comments you want to make, Michelle?
I think it's a great board as is right now, but to have more representation from the commissioners, I asked if Jackie could be placed on that committee as well because of his experience with commercial real estate and development. I thought he would bring something to the table. He's not the only one who would have that skill set, but he would be one from the town who would have that on the board. So I did recommend.
So just for the board's
request
information,
Jackie.
I concurred with her on that, and we should get that thing kicked off. I think we had one initial kickoff.
We have one
already.
meeting already.
You have your meeting next week?
Yep. One other thing I'll mention, it was kind of all of a sudden this afternoon, Mandy Cohan from, she's the Secretary of Department of Health and Human Services, and you've probably seen her on TV a lot. She's the one that speaks for the governor. She pulled together through the League of Municipalities a group of mayors on a call this afternoon that we were just notified, and it was a kind of a selected target of mayors because she really wanted to discuss the increases we're seeing in the cases of COVID recently. She said Thursday was a record number for the state, and Friday broke the record that was set Thursday, and not sure what it's looking like today. But usually over the weekend it kind of goes down. There's 30 to 35 counties in the state of North Carolina that are showing increases. Of the 100 states, 100 counties, I think 30 of them are showing increases, and I think the message she wanted to give the leaders and the towns is really let's try to make this a team effort to do the things that we've been asked to do, and I think what one of the messages she was having is just people getting tired. They're worn out from this COVID thing. They just wanted to go away. They just wanted to, tomorrow wake up and there's no COVID, and people are just getting tired. They're just getting worn out. But just want to stress to us, and we need to stress to the citizens that just hang in there a little bit longer. Hang in there. Don't let it wear you down to the point that you're not doing what you need to do to keep yourself safe, and that's the bottom line. And state of North Carolina has been really promoting the 3 W's all along, and that's wear your mask and get your 3-foot distances from weight, and also
Say 3?
6 feet.
6 foot. Yeah,
Oh,
6
like,
foot.
wait,
Yeah,
she
6 foot.
reduced it?
You're right. 6 foot
No wonder
distance.
it's going up.
And wash. Wash your hands. Use sanitary. Do the 3 W's. So we'll stress that to our citizens. And she talked about the next step is possibly really doing civil penalties. That adopt civil penalties to address it a little bit, and hope we don't have to do that. Last thing we want to do is kind of do that. So let's promote it ourselves, stress it. Try to get our folks to hang in there I'll try to get a letter out in the next week or two. I think there may be some changes coming out from the governor this weekend. I may have heard something about that. I'm not sure if Kelly, you know anything about that or not. But the way she talked is we do not want to go backwards. We do not want to go backwards in the phases. We want to, continue what we're doing. But if it doesn't turn, then we'll have to do something different. So that was the message, and just hang in there. Don't let this thing wear you down, and hopefully we'll get a vaccine or something that kind of do away with this thing. So with that, anybody got any else closing? If not, I'm gonna
Actually,
call.
I do have one quick question.
Okay.
So the town has took the stand. I just want to make sure that we will not be participating or acknowledging trick-or-treating in Rolesville. It can be done on your own, but the town is not supporting that, correct? Okay. So then, I just want to say that, where is that? This event that's taking place, Sheila, where they're having that Halloween costume contest? How is that going to be handled? Because it does kind of insinuate the town is supporting that. I know there's support in support of the event, but that particular part of the event?
I don't know a lot about that. I don't know that there will be gathering as far as a contest, but I can find out more. I don't know. I just assumed that people were dressed, like they could dress their kids up or dress up on that day, but I
But
didn't.
not really a contest.
I didn't see any sense of gathering for a contest or
Okay.
anything. But I can find out more
I
information.
kind of took it that, you dress up and you go to these places, you go to these shops and take pictures dressed up with
That's what I thought too, but then somebody asked me today, was it a contest? And is the town supporting it, and are they supporting trick-or-treating? I was like, I didn't think so, but I didn't know
I don't
about
think
the
it's
costume.
trick or treat. I think it's all
Walking
Saturday
around.
from 10 to 4.
So it is more business related, but if you're bringing your
Yes.
kids, they'll be in costume.
That's my understanding now.
That, and that's what I
Or
thought.
anybody can wear a costume.
Huh?
Or anybody.
Kelly, don't come out
Yeah,
of
it does say dress in your favorite costume as you're going to the businesses and then take a picture there. It does
Okay.
not, and then it's asking you to post it on social media.
Right.
Okay,
There
okay.
won't be any gathering and having like a contest.
Okay, and that's what I had initially thought, but I thought I missed something because I didn't have the flyer.
And we're going to, hopefully our businesses will do it in a, safe way. 'Cause
But they're already practicing.
that's right. They already should be doing that and continue to do that during this event. So thanks for bringing that up, Michelle. Any other comments? If not, I entertain a motion for recess into executive session.
So move.
I second.
Probably need to read it.
I know, is there something to read?
Yeah, I don't have the verbiage.
So that is.
You want to read it, Paul? You got it?
Yeah, let's see. Make a motion to, I guess we're adjourning into closed
Recess.
session. Recess into closed
Recess.
session. Proper phrase.
I think we are recessing this time.
Recessing executive session pursuant to N.C.G.S. 143-318.11A6 for personnel reasons.
Okay, I got a motion. I hear a second.
Second.
Okay, got 2 seconds. Who
I think
who
we
was
had
first?
3.
Michelle? Any other discussion? Not all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Not hearing any, and we will go into recess into executive session. So